That's right, it's another UFC video. Get used to it. And by get used to it, I mean I probably will only make one of these every couple of months and everything else is still proceeding as normal, but get used to that non-change then. Anyway, as some of you know, I'm a really big fan of the UFC, aka the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And what better time to talk about it again than their first pay-per-view card of 2021, headlined by the rematch between Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. For those who are not interested in MMA, let's be honest, they didn't get this far. But if you're somehow still here, stick around, because what I want to talk about today is why this fight is so exciting. And a lot of what goes into that, including the storyline, the fighters' personalities, etc., I think is universally exciting even if you don't follow the sport itself. So, let's get into this. So if you didn't know much about these two fighters and saw that it's a rematch, you might assume, okay, well, whoever won the first one is gonna win again. And in case you don't know, Conor McGregor won the first fight by TKO in the first round, all the way back in 2014. However, it is very much not the same fight because of how both of these guys have evolved since then in different ways. And they aren't just fighting again because why not do a rematch? They're fighting again because they've both made their ways to the top of the division, and now, coincidentally, this matchup now makes sense again. So, what's changed since the first fight that should get people still excited for this? Well, for one, it's at a different weight class, one where it could be argued both fighters look much more comfortable. Secondly, both fighters have very evidently improved and grown their skill set since that first fight. Conor becoming a 2-division champion, Dustin becoming an interim champion, and taking out some of the best fighters in the world, and this also shows that different aspects of their fight game has improved. For example, Dustin, who McGregor made fun of for not being able to take a punch leading up to their fight.
His chin is deteriorating. Every single contest he gets in, he hits one knee. He does a gust of wind and he does the chicken dance, you know what I mean?
Has shown since then, he can definitely take a punch.
In real trouble.
Another big reason to be excited for this fight is that these two have two of the most exciting, or as some would call it, fan-friendly styles in the sport. That being explosive with fists and legs flying, and that should lead to some awesome exchanges. Dustin is definitely more open to wrestling and grappling than McGregor. He does love that guillotine. But generally, these two guys' fights play out with them throwing those 4-ounce gloves with everything they've got. And they've both got a lot of power. Conor especially. And Conor is definitely a fast starter, so it's not likely there'll just be a round of them standing around looking at each other. When these two fighting styles intersect, it should be very entertaining to watch. And then, another aspect of this that makes it so entertaining, and part of what I think makes the UFC in general very entertaining, is the fighters' stories, which then also includes the fights leading into this, and the personalities of the fighters. For starters, Conor McGregor's story is probably the most well-known in the UFC. He was a talented, hardworking kid who came from very humble beginnings. He worked his way with his entertaining style and knockouts and hilarity on the mic to become the biggest star in combat sports history. Then he had a pretty significant downfall, and now he's on his redemption arc, trying to redeem himself both inside the cage and out of it and return to his former glory. Dustin Poirier, on the other hand, didn't talk to get the opportunities he's gotten. He fought his way fight by fight to get to the top of the division. He's fought the second most fights in UFC history before getting a title shot, only behind the legendary Michael Bisping. He's been knocked out and choked out in some brutal ways, and yet he always continues to fight onward. Never gives up, and much like Bisping again, works his way back to the top over and over. And now he's on the verge of another title shot after this fight. The clash of these stories is extremely interesting, because these guys are both at a make or break point right now. Okay, maybe make or break is a bit tough. I think they'll both continue to fight even if they lose, especially Poirier, more on that later. But this is the culmination of two guys trying to work their way back to the top, and now we get to see who's gonna make it this time. Not only that, but the fact that McGregor is one of the people who knocked out Poirier, and that was one of the big things he had to come back from, makes this rematch all the more fascinating. Dustin Poirier, while very cool and likable, isn't exactly the biggest trash talker, whereas that's what McGregor really became known for, along with his fighting skills. But we've seen recently that McGregor is trying to take a more humble approach, or at least a less aggressive one, with the people he respects in the UFC, so I doubt we'll see a lot of trash talk coming into this one. It'll be interesting to see how that affects the fight, as a lot of people attribute Poirier walking into some of Conor's biggest shots to Conor relentlessly trash-talking him and tormenting him leading up to their fight, to the point where Poirier didn't fight his best because he was so mad. That's what Conor was known to do, so now that that's more known and out there, and he's not likely to do it again, plus, I imagine Poirier is mentally stronger now, it'll be interesting to see what effect that has. Also, no crowd? Maybe that favors Poirier, given that McGregor is such a huge star and has always worked the crowd better than maybe anyone else. But even without the trash talk, the return of McGregor always brings a giant show and intrigue and hype, so that'll be cool to see again. In addition, in terms of storyline, this fight is extremely pivotal for the overall lightweight division. That's something else I love about the UFC. It's like a cinematic universe, because each fight then affects what comes next in the division and who faces who next. It all builds as a continuous story. So the winner of this fight is likely going to fight for a title next, maybe against Justin Gaethje or Charles Oliveira, or Khabib, depending on how his conversation with Dana goes. And given how stacked the lightweight division is, there are lots of good fights for the loser as well. Ferguson, Hooker, Dos Anjos, Chandler now. So this fight isn't only going to be awesome on its own, but it's like a bonus present that then it sets up a lot of exciting fights for the future. Now at the end here, I want to touch on who do I want to win and who do I think will win. Both are tough, because Dustin Poirier might be my favorite fighter currently fighting in the UFC. He just has such a beautiful to watch and exciting fighting style, and I absolutely love his story. If you know me at all, you know I love a story about someone getting knocked down and having to find it within themselves to keep going and keep fighting, and that's Dustin Poirier in a nutshell.
I've got knocked down, I've climbed back up. Like I said before, man, this is my belt. I earned this in blood. I paid in full. This is mine.
And he seems like a great, cool person, from his interviews and the charity he started. So I am probably leaning towards wanting Dustin to win. However, for somewhat different reasons, I don't really want to see McGregor lose either. I know a lot of people hate McGregor, and he's done some bad stuff for sure that I do not agree with, but I still do like him in general, and I hope he's being sincere when he says he's changed. He's obviously hilarious and a hell of a fighter, and he's the most iconic MMA fighter of all time, so he's the way a lot of people started to get into MMA and the UFC, which leaves a bit of a soft spot for him. And my main worry is, if he loses, I feel like he's just gonna peace out of the UFC again, and go back to boxing or something else. Which isn't a great reason for wanting him to win, but I want to see McGregor fight more. McGregor fights are entertaining, and the build-up, in the fight itself, and the post-fight, I want to see him stick around. And to be honest, the upcoming matchups for the winner of this fight, a fight with Gaethje, or maybe even Khabib, depending on how that turns out, I'd be more interested in seeing McGregor take those fights, since we've already seen Gaethje with Dustin, and a McGregor-Khabib rematch is more exciting to me than a Dustin-Khabib rematch. I mean, Oliveira, if that's where it's going, would be interesting with both, but still. And hey, I also like the idea of McGregor's redemption arc and him adding even more to his crazy legacy already. But I also would absolutely love to see Dustin as a champion. So you see why this is tough. I'm gonna say, for this fight, just in a vacuum, I want Dustin to win. But it's kind of a win-win or lose-lose either way, depending on how you look at it, because I like both fighters in different ways, and I want both of them to win for different reasons. Who do I think will win? Again, tough, because Dustin has improved a ton since that first fight, but so has McGregor. And if I had to put money on it, based on how powerful and technical he is in the early going, I would go with McGregor by another early TKO. No discredit to Dustin, it's not because he's not good enough, it's just McGregor is very good early on, and Dustin did get hit a lot in that Hooker fight, and quite a few of his fights do turn into epic wars, and while they're great to watch and show his chin has improved, McGregor hits very hard, and if Dustin's open to get hit by that, then I worry for him. Also, I mean, I do kind of believe Conor when he says he's gonna do something. He's only been wrong, 2 times? And every other time, it's pretty much gone exactly how he said. So maybe Mystic Mac is back here.
So I said I'd knock him out in the first round, and I knocked him out in the first round. You can call me Mystic Mac, because I predict these things.
However, if Dustin can drag the fight out and turn it into more of one of those wars, I think he could take it by decision. I just don't see that as likely as an early stoppage for McGregor, but it's entirely possible that Dustin could prove me wrong. So while that early stoppage would be my bet, it's not a guarantee, which ultimately is what makes this exciting. I really don't know how it's going to turn out, because of how these two have changed. That, their fighting styles, their personalities, their storylines, and the overall storyline of the lightweight division all make this fight on January 23rd one to look out for. So, those are my thoughts on the upcoming lightweight fight between McGregor and Poirier. I know this video will probably get 400 views, but I love talking about this, and again, I want this channel to be for me to talk about things that I love talking about. So, who do you think will win, and who do you want to win? Let me know all of your thoughts down below in the comments. While you're at it, be sure to like this video, check out my Instagram and Twitter at BHL_Hudson, check out this podcast about movies and TV and whatnot I did with a friend of mine, it's called The Poorly Planned Podcast, and subscribe for more videos like the one you just watched. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.